This is Kelsey Stevens doing my Wet Records project. Picking not a very ideal day because it's very windy out, so I hope that that doesn't distort any of the audio too much. I guess we'll see. So I've got over here so I decided to challenge myself just a little bit. I'm going to, inspired by my dirt backyard that we're trying to get grass to grow in. I am going to do just a few of these items in some mud, so I have my mud concoction over here. So I am going to do that as well as submerging some things just in some plain water to kind of experiment and see what I can do. So I have this is my bucket. I'm going to do just the plain water stuff in. The mud, I think I'm just going to keep in that bowl and just kind of shift everything around in there. And then I have my clean water. I have 3 clean water bowls to rinse my mud stuff in as well. So I have some gloves. I have a butter knife because I don't have a flatter spatula to be able to separate some pages out. Oh, I am going to have to grab some paper towels, but I have some scissors. So I found some old negatives, which I thought would be kind of cool. Hopefully there's no one has Essential Records still on negatives, but so I have those. I have a few old photographs. I have an old thank you card. This is kind of on some kind of shiny but not paper, so I was going to see what that did. I have just an advertisement thing from the place we buy our supplements from, and I have an old magazine. These are what I'm going to put in the mud, so just a couple of regular just pieces of paper and a couple of those negatives and one of the photographs. So I have some string that I'm going to hang the photographs and the negatives on once I do all that. So we're going to pause here. I'm going to submerge everything and we'll see what it does. Okay, so I'm gonna just stick all of this in here. Get everything oh, that is curling already. Okay. Oops. Do this. Oh, that is also already not holding up great. All right, this magazine is interesting because it has the cover has kind of a matte finish to it. So I don't know. We'll see what that does. Okay, so there's all my stuff. Get all that kind of submerged in there. Okay. Okay, and then on to my mud. Okay. Oh, whoops. I don't know if I made enough mud to get on this stuff. Do that a little bit for that. Just for fun. Okay. We'll stick that over here. I think the photograph and the negatives will be easier to do this in. Okay, so there's that. So we'll let that sit for 15-20 minutes and come back. Okay, and we're back. So I'm gonna start with my wet stuff. Got my glove on. I do not have any masks around, and I'm gonna see if I can keep this better in frame than I did before. So this advertisement thing came apart at the perforations because this part's supposed to be a coupon, and then I think this part was just folded, but it is coming apart too as I pull it out. Let it dry a little bit. I do not have the ideal situations for this right now. I don't have a very big table. And inside I have curious cats who will get into everything. So I will take the big bucket off when I get everything out of it, and then lay everything flat and on its own. Okay, so there's that. All the ink stayed intact on that, which is pretty impressive. Okay, here's this thank you card. And it looks like that one actually held up pretty well. See if I can find my butter knife here and see if I can get it pulled apart. Oops. Tough to do one-handed. My husband is working today, and so I don't have an assistant for filming. Oh, I don't know if it's thin enough to get underneath there. I might have to rethink what I'm going to use for the magazine. Aha, there we go. Okay. And then open that up. So all the writing in that held up pretty well, which is awesome. Okay. I'm going to do this magazine last because I'm going to need more room for that. Okay, here's this little postcard thing. Oh, in the wind, it ripped a little bit in my hand, but ink held up pretty well on that too. Okay, what else did I have in here? Oh yeah, pictures. Oops. I'm not doing a very good job of keeping everything in frame here. Okay. So there's that one, which it doesn't, I mean, I don't think they were in the water long enough to do too much damage here. Seems like they're doing all right there. Okay. All right, the negatives, I did notice, we're starting to curl just a little bit. And then these, I think, are kind of a similar drying technique to photographs in that you want to hang them. So I've got some string that I put up, and I thought, we'll see how this goes. I had a thought. So I have string, I hung some paper clips, and I was gonna see if the holes in the negatives were big enough for the paper clips to go through. Oh, I'm gonna stop and hang this and see how it does. Okay, string is not tight enough, and of course the wind is working against me, but there's my photographs, and with the string tightened, it actually looks like my little paperclip contraption is going to work pretty well for these negatives. Again, if the wind weren't blowing so hard, they would be able to hang there and dry. And I don't know, it's hard to tell. It looks like there might be a little bit of, in terms of like running and staining, just a little bit maybe. I can't really tell. It's hard to tell in the video too. But okay, now I'm gonna pause and we're gonna go to the muddy stuff. Okay, just kidding. I forgot about the magazine. All right, so in order to have room to do this, I moved it off the table. I'm gonna lift it up. And it is, oh, there's another negative hiding under there. Okay. Very, very waterlogged. It looks like the ink has started to come off of that cover a little bit too. Okay. All right, we're going to very carefully transfer this up here. All right. Oh, shoot. Okay. So, And just like in our example video, I'm gonna have to, I've got a few paper towels over here, so I have to figure out how to very carefully, but yeah, even that little bit, you can see the swelling in the spine of this. It's the ink is, or the finishing is coming off of it. So pulling this back, grabbing a paper towel maybe. Okay. And I guess I should have gotten bigger. I didn't even think about this being too big for these little half sheets of paper towel. I fail at the magazine. Okay. We're gonna move this over a little bit so I can pull these. So, again, in this corner, with this little butter knife. Oops. Trying to pull these pieces up is not going well. So I can definitely see how doing this in a real life situation where, say this is a record book, someone's ledgers that they will need access to. Something like that would be so time consuming and stressful in terms of trying to make sure that you don't destroy anything. And I cannot even get the corner of this first page up very well. I can see it, I just can't get it. Especially with the glove on. And again, in a real world situation, you wouldn't necessarily want to take your glove off just to make it easier because you don't know what kind of stuff, you know, the water and all of that. So definitely wouldn't want to chance that. Oopsie, and then I'm destroying it. So I'm not being successful in this situation even a little bit, and you can even see still, like, just with this paper towel just sitting on top of it and not even like or you know, with something on it, it's already saturated. So this sucker took on a lot of water in a short amount of time. Okay, now we're gonna pause and I'm gonna mess with the mud stuff just for fun. Okay, so I know that the strategy for this is to remove as much as you can, as carefully as you can, and then rinse in various buckets of water, clean water. So, oh gosh, wind working against me. We'll tuck those under there because that's a lost cause. Okay, so we're gonna take, I'm not handling this very carefully. Okay, we're gonna hold it by a corner that doesn't really have a lot of mud on it, and so we're gonna rinse in this first bucket a few times, get as much of the like chunky mud off of it as possible, very gently. Same with the other one. The other one has like a big glob of mud on it. So we're gonna do this. And just, especially with these negatives, because there's the possibility of them scratching. I probably need like a soft brush. And because these sat out a little bit, kind of half in the sun, half out of the sun with the wind too, like some of it dried. So that's probably another thing that works against me. But also, is probably a real world example of some things that can happen if things sit for long enough. So I'm maybe gonna let those sit in that water just for a couple of minutes to soak some of the mud off of it, and then we'll move on to the next bucket. Okay, so we're going to, up past my glove in that water. Okay, so then I'm gonna take this one. We can see a little bit more coming off of it, but not a ton. I'll let that sit for a minute, see if I can fish these negatives out of here without, oh, I can feel that water in my glove. Not a good choice. Okay. So then we've still got just one little chunk of mud on that negative. Wring my glove out a little bit. Okay, and we'll find this last one. Maybe. Aha, got it. Okay, this one looks better. Still a little bit of mud on it, but not too bad. Okay. And then in terms of this, because I don't have a good soft brush, I'm just gently wipe some more of that mud off of there. We do have pretty clay-based dirt here, which is like a consideration. It doesn't come off of things very easily. Even your hands with soap and water, you have to work at it a little bit. So this is not entirely unexpected that it doesn't want to come off of this stuff. But it seems like just very, very gentle pressure is enough to get a lot of that mud off of here. Again, I don't think that's really a great strategy, or proper technique. Like I say, I figure probably like more of like a brush, a soft brush would be better. Okay, so there's that. This was actually probably not the greatest picture to do this with because it was blurry to begin with, so it's hard to tell if there were damages to it, but it looks to be. So with that and with gentle agitation, the front of that picture looks to have come pretty clean. And then these negatives still look like they have just a little bit of dirt on them. But all things considered, I'm not sure if you can see in the light, they don't look too bad. And then do this last rinse on this one. All right, I'll pause and hang these up and we can take a look at the overview. I forgot about my muddy paper. One of them blew away in the wind, so we'll see what this one does real fast. This, I get the feeling, is going to be a little bit tougher if I could get anything in the frame here. Might be a little bit tougher than those negatives and photographs because I get the feeling this paper is not really going to hold up very well in the water in general. I don't know, it may. All right, the mud started to come off of it really, really easily. Again, this would be a good place for like some kind of a soft brush or a sponge. But that mud actually came off of there a lot easier than I expected it to. Okay. So that's our first pass through. Ooh. Okay. And then kind of some gentle agitation with these. Okay, this paper is holding up much better than I expected it to, so that's kind of a pleasant surprise. Okay. All right. Like you can see all the information that was printed on it, so nothing is obstructed in terms of that information. Oh, there's my other piece. It came back. I couldn't find it a minute ago. Okay. All right, and one last rinse. Okay, so that was actually much easier than the photographs and the negatives were. Okay, final product. I did not have anything that I needed to adequately deal with this magazine. So lesson learned on that. Paper's all laying out to dry. This is my mud stuff, so some stains, but it looks like anything on it would continue to be legible. Some of the paper is already like close to dry just from being out in the wind. As I'm looking at these negatives that I did first, they're starting to curl a little bit as they dry, and I do remember now that the suggestion was for weights on those, on the bottoms of them, so that this didn't happen. And I do see even just a little bit of like a water stain where some water sat as it was drying too. And as this is drying a little bit more in the light, I can see some mud still on that, so I did not get those as clean as they needed to be. So those would definitely probably need another pass through a water bath before they dry out completely. Yeah, this photograph looks like it still has just a little bit of dirt on it. I don't know if you can see it, but just a little bit right in here. But otherwise, the paper of the mud stuff was the most successful. But yeah, so that is my project. Lesson learned on that magazine is that really you need some very specific tools for that. You need to really have some time and some patience to be able to successfully get those things like that, of that kind of material, dealt with adequately. So yes, so that's what I've got.